time to play.
What's that name?
And here's your host, Vince Blake.
Hello! I'm the Thesterninator. Welcome to the channel. And today we're talking about names. Names can be difficult, right? I mean, look at Psyduck, for example. Obviously and clearly, it's a psychic duck, but no, it's just a water type. Makes a little bit more sense, though, when it evolves into Golduck, who's still not psychic type and is very clearly blue. Some names are a little bit easier to come across than others. For example, Charizard, Char and Lizard. Blastoise, Blast and Tortoise. Venusaur, Venus and Soar. That one's a little bit harder to explain. But some other Pokemon like Knackley, whose name is literally the translation of NaCl, the chemical composition of sodium chloride, which means Knackle-Stackle is just a stack of sodium chloride, and Garganical is a gargantuan sodium chloride. Makes a little bit more sense. So I decided I was going to outsource some of today's video. Got a hold of some of my favorite creators across the internet and utilize them to come up with names. I would then turn those names into Pokemon and we'd see how it worked out, taking apart the inspiration that I saw within the names to make something that hopefully makes sense. So no more stalling, let's go ahead and hop right into today's video. Hi, I'm the Thesterninator, but my friends call me Who Are You and How Did You Get Into My House? Don't forget that while you're here to stop down below, like, comment, and subscribe, do all that fun stuff that makes me and YouTube happy, and let's hop right into the video. First out of the cannon, we have the word Titaria. I didn't know where to go with this. Virgo really threw me for a loop when suggesting this name idea, but luckily for me, I ended up doing this one on a live stream. And I had someone bring up, oh, kind of like the Tuatara lizard. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what that meant, so I had to look it up. And it really gave me an area to kind of continue exploring with this idea. I already knew that with the end of the name, Titaria, sounding like aria, which comes from an opera singer's kind of solo act there, I wanted this to be musically based. But with the Tuatara inspiration brought up by the live stream, I kind of had a direction suddenly. I thought about a Titan, a Tuatara, and an Aria, this big lizard that sings, and thought it would be fun. Also taking into account that third eye that Tuatara are known to have, mainly for sensing light, but it's a lizard that has a third eye on the top of its head. That's not something I can really ignore. I wanted to play with the idea a little bit. I thought about making it a psychic type with this gem in the center of its forehead, but moved away a little bit more so towards the end of this process, and I'm really happy that I did. I knew that I wanted to make this feel like an opera singer, give it that Phantom of the Opera style cape, but turned it into a tailed coat, much more similar to a shed skin. That became a big motif of this design. So already we had a ton of stuff going in. It was going to be a Titan, it was going to be a Tuatara, it was going to be Aria, it was going to be an opera singer, it was going to have a cloak of some kind, and that cloak was meant to look like shed skin. I kind of went off the rails on this one, but ultimately I'm pretty happy with where it went. We played with color for a little while on the stream and ended up coming up with something that very much felt Phantom of the Opera inspired, while also looking like Virgo, which was a complete accident, but I'm really glad that it worked out. It feels like it's very much connected to the person who brought up this idea. I thought about these kind of shapes or fins that come off the forehead as emanating an energy, emanating some sort of psychic, or in this case, fairy type of energy. I really could have gone either way, but decided with everything coming in the next couple descriptions, I wanted to do something very specific. I also incorporated this pattern to the coat that made it look, again, more like this shed skin type of material, and I'm really glad that I did. I will say a lot of this design came from the inspiration brought on by those live streams, which I do every Wednesday. So there'll be another one this Wednesday. We'll be doing pack openings, but normally I'll do a live stream drawing challenge of some sort. So check those out. But back to the design, I really dig it. I think it comes across in a lot of ways and brings all of those areas of influence together in a really fascinating way. Let me know if you see all of those areas of inspiration. Do you see the Phantom of the Opera? Do you see the musical? Do you see the Tuatara three-eyed lizard? So this is Titaria, a normal fairy type. Name inspiration, Tuatara, Titan, and Aria. For the shiny, I went ahead and changed the colors to look a little bit closer to Virgo, since it already ended up feeling so similar, I decided to just jump into it, and I'm really glad that I did. Virgo, I hope that you enjoy what came out of this, and I hope that the name is something fitting to maybe what you were picturing when you came up with this concept. But moving on, we have a lot more Pokemon to get into, including this next one, which has a fun and crazy and wild name that I was so glad to play with, that being Exterminator, brought up by Febe, someone that I've worked with in other collaborations on this channel before, and always has these far out crazy ideas that she's always able to make it into something incredible. So I knew I had some big shoes to fill. Obviously the name has some extermination type of factors to it, as well as that gator feel, so I kind of knew where I wanted to go. I wanted to make this feel like a gas mask wearing alligator. So I made this long snooty snout, very much feeling like a Garl type of gator crocodilian, as well as giving it these like plume or areas that jut out on the sides of the face, very much kind of trying to bring in that World War II gas mask type of vibe, while also just making it look a little bit doofy. There's a part of me that says when you have a Pokemon that has such a dark and drastic area of inspiration, you have to give it a little bit of humor just to balance that out. So he's got this really goofy expression for being a World War II gas mask inspired Pokemon. I also wanted to give it kind of this weird stature, something that felt like it should walk on 4 legs, but is instead standing up on 2 to be a little bit more menacing, a little bit more intimidating, and giving it that ghostly tail like we see with the Dracopult line. I know it's something that already exists, but I picture it more as a plume of toxic gas rather than ghost energy. I also really wanted to bring in this cannon type of look, but wanted to stay away from Blastoise, who kind of already has that in the bag, so I made this cannon on the top of its body more triangular shaped, and made it more like a flume that shoots out gas, more dispersal based, rather than this hydro pump style cannon. I like the colors that I used too, very bright and vibrant, very toxic feeling with those purples and those greenish seafoam colors and those blue under eyes that really invoke that Waluigi type of look. I dig this design so much. It's so weird, and going in working on a name by Febe, I knew weird means that we're going the right direction. If you haven't seen her channel, she does all sorts of crazy stuff like ARGs, puzzles, very dark and spooky type of Pokemon content, as well as just fantastic art. I highly suggest checking out Febe if you haven't seen them. All of the artists from this video and people who've brought in different ideas and names are going to be listed down below, so if you haven't seen them, I don't know why, because they're hyper talented, but check them out. Getting back to our Exterminator here, it is such a fun name to say, and I found myself repeating it back and forth to myself as I was drawing this. It was so much fun, and getting to play with all of those colors and shapes, I really went in not knowing what I wanted to do here, other than that base idea, Extermination Gator, and it ended up being a lot of fun to get to play with the possibilities of what that name could mean, and where those references could go. It was so much fun, and I really like how it came out. Definitely one of my top favorite Pokemon that I've gotten the chance to draw, and I owe that all to Febe, so thank you for bringing to life Exterminator, the pure poison Pokemon. It is Exterminate and Alligator, and for the shiny, I wanted something that just felt a little bit more sickly. Something green and yellow. Just the idea of blue gas is kind of cool and kind of mystic and interesting, but that yellow gas, again with that World War II inspiration, evokes the idea of mustard gas and just this poisonous toxic flume. But Febe actually also went and designed their own version of Exterminator, which I dig. Very much mummy style, that ritualistic wrapping. I love this thing, and very much going with that dinosaur or crocodilian alligator type of shape to the body, I think puts out so much energy and puts out so much in the way of making this thing feel intimidating. A lot less goofy, but it makes up for that by just being a cool design and amazing render. So thanks a lot, Febe, this was great. But playing up some fantasy vibes, especially with the name Bogon, brought in by Pointy Hat themselves, I decided that I wanted to bring in some more reference to the actual artist, the person who comes up with these names for this video. So I decided to look more into D&D. I know about characters like Bogarts, and I know about bogs and how prevalent those are in the D&D atmosphere. I myself love a good game, DM'd a couple myself, but I wanted to bring all of that knowledge into the Pokemon world. So that involved a couple extra steps, but hopefully nothing that was gonna drive me insane or to the point of madness. So I decided that I wanted to make something that really drove home that bog type of feel while bringing in the description of Boggarts as a whole. You see, Boggart's whole thing is that they're able to kind of shapeshift into things that you fear or are disgusting or gross to kind of get you to stay away from them or to trick you in many ways. So I wanted something that brought that as well as that swampy type of atmosphere. I thought about the term Bagon as its name, or Bogon, and thought, okay, that seems interesting. It almost sounds like be gone, like it's haunting something. So I took all of these weird type of references that we had, the idea of it being heavily D&D and fantasy inspired, Boggarts as a whole, be gone as a term for the name, and bog as that reference at the very beginning to make it more familiar to those who don't play D&D. And I came up with something that I really like. It feels like this forest guardian or this swampy protector type of dude, and I really dig it. The face I wanted very much to evoke the look of some of our more legendary and mythical creatures. It almost has an Entei type of feel to it, and I don't know specifically why that is. It just strikes me in that certain part of my brain. Maybe it's that mask or crest that Entei wears looks very similar to kind of how this seaweed or bog plant kind of falls, but I really dig it. I didn't want to make it all fully one boggy type of mesh though, so I ended up making the legs into this mud just to break up the shapes a little bit and move the white part of the body into this front jaw to make it feel more wizened, make it feel like it is this ancient creature. And I think that there's a lot of color in this design that plays really well together and makes it just feel a little bit more three-dimensional, as well as applying some story to it. Because for Dungeons & Dragons, everything has some sort of backstory or understanding on why or how it could come to be. I mean, I've been in the instance where as a DM, I have my players ask, and what's this guy's name? And I have nothing prepared. Not the case here, because we have Bogon, grass ghost type, Bog, Begone, and Bogart. And for the shiny, I went with this more wizened type of look, making it feel a little bit more like these dead and whitened plants, and I love it so much. This was such a good exercise for the brain of not just bringing in this name and turning it into a Pokemon, but trying to bring in the references of who these creators are as well, and throwing that even further on top of everything. But speaking of mixing and matching different assets and various references, I want to introduce you to Multiversal Drift. In case you don't know, I've been running this art challenge for the past month or so, and the idea is you make up a universe where maybe something different happened. There was an alteration in the timeline, and now Pokemon and trainers work, function, or look differently. You can post those across various social medias using SternMultiDrift as your hashtag, and I'll go and find them. At the end of every month, that being January, February, and March, I'm gonna post a video where we go over what these universes are, how these characters came to be, and who the artists are who created them. Let me know if you're interested in this down in the comments, and hop into our Discord where you can see some of the artwork that's already been submitted. Putting all of our pieces back into place, our next name was Aremone, brought up by none other than Nordist. So I did not know, and still to this moment do not know, what the name broken down is. Nort, if you can tell me or give me a hint in any way, shape, or form, put a signal in the sky, smoke signals of some sort, semaphore if you can. I don't know where the inspiration for this name came from. I did, however, know what an anemone was, and there's not a lot of animals and things that end with that anemone type of sound, so I decided to go with that. I also looked up what ARRE could potentially mean. I didn't know at the time what you were going for, but I know that by looking up Ara, in India, that actually translates to a way of getting someone's attention, a way of saying, hey, look over here in some form or term. And so I thought, well, what if I made something that kind of did the opposite? What if I made an anemone that's whole thing was to grab things and throw them as far as it could? It's a stationary creature after all, so it doesn't have a lot of defenses, things like poison or attacking in some physical form, so what if it just shoved things away? I thought about that and thought about how an anemone already has these weird finger-like tendrils, and played with that concept for a little bit and came up with this big Frankenstein-y monster hand that's kind of loosely sewn onto this cute and adorable little sea creature. Look at that little polyp, I love him. And I dig this design. Kind of going in not knowing where I wanted to go with this, Nort, I feel like we got a lot done, and I feel like there's such a fun and heavy inspiration on this direction. There's no subtlety to this Pokemon, and I dig that. I think that having this loud and vibrant little tiny dude is so fun, and it was such a fun concept getting to play with the colors and the shapes and that more cartoonish variable that Pokemon tends to have sometimes that honestly I tend to stray away from because it scares me. This ended up being a fun exercise in that. I think of Pokemon like Impidimp and how for me it's just too cartoony, too wacky and zany, but I got the opportunity to kind of play with that in this design, and I'm really happy that I did, because I think that it puts a lot through and gets a lot of personality to this design, apart from just, okay, it's a Pokemon, but what else is new? Well, you get to play with the shapes a little bit more, make it purposefully wacky and zany, and that big goofy hand coming out of its head, I think is the fingernail encrusted cherry on top. I love this little guy, probably one of my favorites of the video, and it came from having such a struggle trying to figure out how to even start. So this is a Remini, a water fighting type. Comes from the terms ara ara, which again in Indian culture means look over here or to get attention of someone, and anemone, you know, like a sea anemone, the thing that Nemo lives in. For the shiny, I went with this bluish color because I didn't want something that strayed too far away from what we already had. And the idea of a blue and pink little hand, maybe when they're kind of friends, they hold hands, and that blue and pink type of energy, I love it so much. But Nordist actually did their own iteration of this Pokemon with a Remini, and I never once thought to go the direction of a satellite dish. And I'm glad that I didn't, because I don't think that I could have done better than how this one turned out. Nordist is a very talented artist, and this is a very cool Pokemon. And last but not least, we have the headache that is Moldork. Bonnie John, friend, where are we going with this? I was so confused on what this could be. I thought about maybe it was a reference to an enemy from Zelda or something. I don't know, and I kind of racked my brain around this for quite some time before I decided to just go with my gut on it and say, okay, I see the words mold and I see the words dork. Let's do that. So I wanted to make something that felt like this little dorky mushroom type of creature kind of bursting out of the ground. Maybe it's super shy. I got to play so much with the idea of the personality for this design, again, probably because I was so unsure of where I wanted to take this inspiration from. That was kind of the whole point of this experiment, was seeing, okay, if we can come up with a name, can we then move it into something that feels like it makes sense? If we kind of, in the way that I do my setup, work backwards. And I ended up loving this guy. He's so nervous, he has such a personality, and the personality was really all that I had to go with, not fully knowing what I wanted to do for the design itself. We have so many mushroom Pokemon already, and I had to decide if I wanted to go the route of making it look like all the other mushroom Pokemon, specifically Toadstool, who is the perfect Pokemon design, or make it look like something different. I decided to play up both ends, and hopefully I did so to success, where it looks like some of the mushroom Pokemon that we already have, very much having that Toadstool shaped head and that Morlul shaped base body, as well as almost Ambipom's hands. But I really dig it. It's a simple design and a very simple Pokemon that I came up with here, but I love him so much. He's so shy, and he's just trying to hide himself. Maybe when no one's around, he pulls all of his like arms and everything in just to look like a mushroom. Very much one of those hidden Pokemon that you know I love so much, those little ambush type dudes. So I dig it. Look, he's even like putting his hands over one another in that shy type of pose. He's one step away from doing the fingers touching each other type of look. And giving him those goofy little teeth, I think, was the cherry on top, at least for me, and how much I love this design. Because I feel like it also adds so much flavor to a Pokemon that doesn't even have eyes, just like the semblance of them. This was a ton of fun and came out to be Moldork, the grass psychic type. Mold and Dork. For the shiny, I went with more of those like poisonish type of colors, despite it being a poison type. Like I said, it's an ambush Pokemon, so I wanted it to feel like something that you might want to stay away from. In this world of Pokemon, Maybe they're poisonous mushrooms that cause poison to Pokemon that just walk over them. And also, I want to point out, I'm not the only one who did a design for this Pokemon. Bonnie actually did a design themselves for Moldork, which I was so surprised also went the mushroom route. I was pumped about that. I was like, okay, cool. So we got some of the same base ideas. I feel like this was a success, but I also love Bonnie's so much. So let me know what you think down in the comments. I loved the opportunity of getting to work with so many talented and creative people to bring these random assortment of letters to life. And I feel like we did. I must say, this video was one of my most fun and one of my favorites to come out of the designs that we had. So let me know what you think down below. If you want to see more of my stuff, you can check out my Ko-fi, where I actually post designs that go up for sale. I do those at the end of every month, updating that list. You can also find me on Patreon, where you can get high-res images of images just like these, as well as others from previous videos. You can also find me at the Discord down below, where we have a very quickly growing community down there, just passing 1,500 members, and we talk about everything from Transformers to Five Nights at Freddy's, everything across the gambit. But with all that said, it sounds like you know where to find me, and I'll catch you in the next one. But hey, before we go, I want to give a shout out to all of the people who helped make these videos possible. Those being the supporters who found me across Ko-fi and Patreon and all these other spots. Thank you so much for allowing me to continue to make these videos and to enjoy just the life that you guys have provided for me in doing so. I want to give a big McThankies from McSpankies to some of our higher tier supporters, those being Siren Sprague, Daniel, Kaylin Cat, Soren Frost, Styx TV, Dan Bush, Tony F, and Ko-fi supporter. You guys truly are the most. I couldn't do this without you, so thank you. And, bye.